Welcome to my first video on working with a specific animal, and the first one's gonna be bears. In terms of tarot, I wanted to show two cards from the Brady tarot that feature bears, and I'll start with this one because I love it so much. So this is the daughter of Roots, so the Page of Pentacles, and it's a sweet depiction, almost a little bit too cutesy for me, but it's not a cutesy deck, I'm gonna forgive it. In general, it's not a cutesy deck, and I think that in terms of Page of Pentacles, this is a really, it's a sweet energy. It's exploring our physical environment. It's really really being open to new in our physical world. And the bears are curious creatures, and I think that this is an appropriate animal for this card. And you can see it's the bear is checking out the woodpecker here, and we have the branches of the trees in this beautiful pattern. Sorry, I'm not sure if this is focusing properly. I might have to move my face out of the camera for it to focus. I read in the guidebook, and I didn't know, this is new information for me, that some First Nations would actually weave the branches of trees to mark as like signposts or as way to mark trails. It's in the guidebook for the Brady tarot. I thought that was really fascinating. I'd never heard about that before, and so that's what is the depiction in this card. And there's a few cards that have that, and then there's the deep roots here. And I think this is a sweet, it's a sweet card. I don't get like really intense bear energy from this, but it is a brown bear. I think that most people would read this as a bear cub. But if you look at it closely, and again, I'm gonna go out of frame to see if it'll focus a bit better. It could be an adult brown bear. And brown bears are, they're definitely more skittish. Brown bears are the ones where if you come across a brown bear, if you make a lot of noise and yell at it, it'll run away. They don't tend, as long as there's no cubs involved, they don't tend to be as territorial or as confrontational as grizzlies can be. And I'll talk more about that in the next one. So the other depiction of bear in the Brady tarot is this card right here, and it's the strength card, and here we have a mama bear. And I both love and struggle with this particular card. What I love about this card is I love the idea of a mother bear exemplifying strength. What bears go through in terms of going through the winter, raising their cubs, all of the human encroachment, and on top of the other environmental struggles of raising cubs. It's a huge deal. I guess like all parenting is, and so I think it's beautiful that we have this mama bear here to speak to that energy, that like the nurturing that's part of strength, the love that's part of strength. And sometimes I think strength cards can look a little bit like there's a lot of forcing, and you're not seeing forcing in this card. What I struggle with is that you're seeing this depiction of a bear. There we go. I'm gonna have to hold this over my face to get it to focus. So anyway, bear face. What we're seeing here is a fairly charged picture or depiction of a bear that's very frightening. If I saw her, I would know my life would be over soon. You know, this angry bear, this is what people are so terrified of bears. And I don't know if this is like a helpful way to think about strength. And I know that there's the, so there's the Ouroboros, rather. I was gonna call it the Aurora Boreas. It's like a cross between Aurora Borealis and the Ouroboros. And maybe lemon skate as well. Is that what it's called? The like infinity? Anyway, that's my own special word. You have a snake around her feet in the infinity symbol, but also creating a closed loop, even a Mobius, if you will. But and then the hawks up top. So we have apex predators in this strength card, but not necessarily shown in a very positive light. And bears do really suffer from people being afraid of them, and so I don't know. I feel really torn about this depiction of strength. She's frothing at the mouth. She's so upset. I don't know where her cubs are, but you can tell she's been nursing because her nipples are swollen. And she's standing up on her hind legs in a really defensive, ready to attack position. She's a really unhappy mom, and I'm trying to work through what that means for strength for me, and that strength is sometimes this kind of like anger and instinctual reaction to fight. I don't know, maybe I just need to do some work with like reclaiming that a little bit. But to me, this is a kind of a sad strength card, and one again that I'm struggling with. So in this way, the Brady Tarot doesn't really come through for me. For me, when I think of bear, I really think more of a hermit. I think of the coming out of your cave in the spring, and I will speak more about that in a little bit. But I think the hermit is such a bear card for me. And while I love the harnessing the strength of bears and their survival instinct, I wish that the strength card was a little bit less confrontational, but perhaps that's my own shadow work showing through there. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about bear stuff, and enjoy. So it was really, really cold in the start of March, and I really, really, really needed to leave town because, as I've mentioned before, I live in a really small town, and it's started to get quite busy with, a bunch of different spring breaks. Because Easter is really late this year, a lot of the spring breaks for universities and schools are kind of spread out all over March and April. And so what I've seen is that there's been like a significant uptick in people visiting, and I wasn't really ready. Like usually that starts in April, and I wasn't really ready for that in March, and I needed to leave. So even though it was snowing and it was a super cold weekend, my partner and I took the dogs and drove to British Columbia and had just a camping weekend. We built fires and we brought candles, and just, yeah, it was great. drank some wine, we made some really amazing camp food, really simple, and it was perfect for me to just chill out and have some time. I didn't see anybody except my partner and my dogs all weekend, and that was exactly what I wanted. So that was really, really nice. And then I was able to have a really amazing day with my parents. We found this new diner because my parents live in like the big city closest to me, and we found this diner that is really, really old. So I don't know how we've missed it for so long, because it's quite close to where I grew up. And my mom researched it because we were looking for gluten-free friendly, places for lunch, because they wanted to take me out for birthday lunch. And it was just incredible. If you live in Calgary, Alberta, and you haven't checked out Dairy Lane, it's so good. It's so adorable. And the day I was in town, it was beautiful. The patio was open for the first time. And one of the things that I always like to share with people that are either visiting the area or don't know the area is nobody gets more excited for spring than Canadians, and particular people here. It's like growing up in Calgary, patio season is like a religious experience. So as soon as it gets above 15 degrees Celsius, all the patios open. So people wear shorts, the patio's open, and that is like the main activity. It's so exciting that even if you have to sit outside with your coat on and like heaters, people are just so excited that it's not winter anymore, that our afternoons are devoted to just patio life. And yeah, spring I would say is my favorite season in this area. Not in general, I'm not a big spring person in general, but definitely in this area, spring is so fun, and that's been bringing me a lot of joy. Related to spring and patio season is I've been thinking a lot about the last video that I posted. I'll put the link below. And I've had some really awesome conversations and have been sort of on the lookout for people doing work in this area, particularly Cosmic Creeper. She is, first of all, like one of my favorite YouTubers and Instagrammers. Don't kill me, internet, I'm not even that into cats, but her cat is so cool. Like, I'm super into her cat. And she has such an interesting way of speaking about how she works with animals, animal energy, and what she calls animal medicine. And I've been learning a lot from her. And so the conversations that I've had in response to that part 2 video have been so fun for me. I mean, I love it. And I love when people disagree with me as well. I think that is so productive and really pushes me to expand my idea about what it means to work with animals, what that could look like. And I so appreciate everyone who has reached out, who has commented, sent me a message or anything to that video. You've really opened and expanded my mind, and I think it's so interesting that something that initially, when I made part 1 of animal decks, I was just sort of making it as like, hey, animal decks are kind of not that great, and you guys like all think animals are cute cuddlies, and they're not, and whatever. Of course my personal animals are cute and cuddly, but my concern was a lot of the taking away the wildness of animals. And one of the things that Cosmic Creeper has taught me, Buka, Buka is right like next to me, and she's trying to dig into her bed. It's noisy. Honey, what was I saying? Cosmic Creeper has really encouraged me both explicitly as well as just in putting out beautiful content to reconsider some of the ways that I might be able to incorporate animals into my own practice and into my own life. So I wanted to speak about something today that's really excited and also related to spring. So I've been thinking about bear energy and working with bears, and this is something that is very much a part of my daily life because I live in a national park. I live in Banff National Park. So there are a lot of bears here. And in particular, we have a dominant alpha male bear named the Boss. And the Boss is usually the first bear up every spring. And so when the Boss is up, it's this big sign of spring. And it's a beautiful cycle to sort of, see these bears or feel and hear about these bears waking up and starting to, roam around, eat, do their bear things. And so in the last couple of weeks, the Boss got up. And I haven't seen any pictures of him yet this year, because normally there'll be Parks Canada will have cameras. I know there was a grain spill on the train tracks, and they're concerned about the bears eating grain on the train tracks and then being struck by trains, which is unfortunately extremely common. And I know the Boss has already been struck by a train at least once and survived. He's a massive, massive bear. I'm not sure how old he is, but he is the alpha or dominant bear for Banff National Park, Yoho, and perhaps Jasper. Basically the territory of this one bear, like he's the dominant bear of this area right here. And Yoho National Park is sort of over here, but it's not on the map, or maybe down here a little bit. Yoho is where they found some of the first sea creatures, fossilized sea creatures up in the mountains, and there's a place called the Burgess Shale there, and it's a really interesting, really cool place where a lot of what we believe about the mountains and about glaciation and the fact that this area of North America was under an ancient sea came from. It's because when you go up there, there's a bunch of fossils. So it's really amazing, actually, if you're working with water energy, because it's a very ancient watery place, and it's where the water element has turned into rock. So it's the meeting of water and earth, and for that reason, I find it a really, really cool place energetically. So anyway, that aside, the Boss is up. It's definitely spring. Very exciting times. I haven't heard about any bear cubs lately, but bears are a huge part of spring here in the mountains. And I'm really, really excited to sort of see, what's new, how many cubs are gonna be around. Again, because our city, it's not a city, our town is sort of enclosed in a national park, so there's animals all around us, and often people who are visiting don't realize that we need to know where they are. And so the main animals, or like main predators that share this space, we kind of know where they are. We know where the wolf packs are, generally the area, and where sort of if there are cougars hunting, we kind of will see them move across and know sort of generally where they are too. Not always, but we'll know, like, oh, there's a cougar that's hunting regularly in this area, and there will be information, and then parks will issue put signs up and issue information for people so that they can be respectful of that area or not go in that area, depending on what's most appropriate. So yeah, spring and bear energy makes me think of this shaking off of winter, this emerging, and this excitement of kind of looking around again and seeing the world transforming. We've been under snow for so long that I haven't seen grass in a long time. And even though it's all dead right now, um, seeing all of the features that have been hidden for so long emerge is a really interesting experience. The time between November and April is my hermit time. It's my time to hibernate like the bear. It's my time to recharge and to not have like so many people around all the time. And it's because it's again a very concentrated space. It's a lot. It's a lot like being in a busier city center, except that it's people on vacation. So, instead of having like a lot of intensity and people being like downtown going to their jobs and having like their own lives, it's just like a lot of people concentrated in a very small space, that are like looking for things to do. And that's a really interesting energy to navigate, and it can be really, really challenging. And so I need that hibernation time for sure. And as exciting as it is for me to, wake up and have spring, there's always that little bit of not anxiety, but like kind of like I know what's coming. And so I've been thinking about how bears prepare for summer, and they really like they wake up hungry, and they wake up and there's things that they really need to do to prepare for summer. And I'm kind of in that mode now too. I'm like, okay, sleeping time is over. It's over a bit earlier than I thought it was going to be this year. And there are things that I need to get done before I don't have time to do anything, before, we're just inundated with people and all of that cycle of energy, continues. And it's really challenging to navigate, and it's not for everyone. If it was for everyone, then, a lot more people would live here full time. But it can be really draining. And so I think that there's a lot of lessons that I can glean from paying more attention to how bears navigate their own lives. And although it's unfortunate that the bears have to deal with a lot of people, they do. And so some of the systems in place for dealing with that, and how we can honor and respect that in terms of, not approaching wildlife. I wish sometimes I could have a sign that was like, do not approach, when I'm not at work. Like, as sometimes I just want to not engage. Every time I go to grocery shopping, I don't necessarily want to like have like a big interaction with people. And it's because I'm introverted. Like I need that time to recharge. And my professional life and my career requires that I play an extroverted role, which I'm absolutely able and happy to do. But if I don't have that bubble, or that time and that space, I get really grumpy, and I could maul people. You never know, but that's very uncommon. People are so terrified of bears, and I just think it's so funny. It's just like, just don't like hang out with bears. Don't be stupid. Don't go in places where they are, and if you are going in places where they could be prepared, be aware, be educated, like don't hang out by yourself, go with a group of 4, make sure that you have all that you all the resources that you can to make it a safe experience for yourself and the animals and the wildlife around you. And yeah, like, oh my goodness, there are stories. Anyway, this video is totally off track. I thought I was gonna be talking about like tarot decks and like what I worked with for March, but now it seems to be a fairly lengthy video of me talking about bears. So maybe we should just continue with that and continue with, you know, me talking about bears in my life. Last summer, was it last summer or the summer before? Maybe it was last spring. I just can't remember. Time is, you know. Anyway, last spring there was a really crazy incident where we had a mama bear that had 3 cubs, which is pretty unusual. They usually don't have 3. And one morning, there's a highway that goes that intersects the park, but goes along the outskirts of the town, which is very close to where I live, is the outskirts. I mean, everything is close here, but you know. Anyway, and the highway kind of has this an outlook that you can drive into and take pictures, and then there's a little washroom there if you need to use facilities. And so one morning, I believe it was last spring, but it could have been 2 years ago, somebody went in to use the washroom quite early in the morning, and they opened the door and there were 3 baby bears, and nobody has any idea how they got in there, but no one could find the mom. And so there were these 3 bear cubs that had been stuck, presumably overnight, in the washroom. I mean, can you even imagine? Can you imagine opening the door and seeing 3 baby bears look up at you? Like, oh my goodness. So anyway, the 3 baby bears, they went to a wildlife rehabilitation center and they were taken care of, and eventually they were able to be released back into the park once they were old enough to take care of themselves. I don't know if they were all tagged. I'm assuming that they were, but I don't know. But that was really crazy experience. Another really interesting and intense bear experience that I had, even though I live here, I actually don't see that many grizzlies, comparatively. Some people are like bear magnets, like they see bears every time they go out. And I am not that person. My partner sees a ton of bears. Like, he sees the boss all the time. Like, when he's out with the dogs, he'll be like, oh yeah, I saw a boss, or I saw, you know, a black bear. It's just, and I rarely see grizzlies, you know, occasionally. And so I remember being out hiking with Ryan. We were hiking the Great Divide, or along the Great Divide. So that's where the continent of North America sort of splits in half. And so on one side, the rivers flow west to east, and on the other side, the rivers flow east to west. And the Continental Divide is sort of roughly along the BC Alberta border. And so we were hiking along there, and we had been out for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, and we were hiking back in, and we saw some fresh bear scat, and we're like, oh, okay, you know, that's usually when you stop and you look around and sort of determine how fresh it is. And we were past sort of a clearing, so where power lines are, they'll clear a bunch of trees along the power line. And so we were sort of at the top of a mountain, and there was a power line clearing down. And remember just sort of like looking around, sort of seeing what's going on, and seeing like this really big boulder down, like, I don't know, maybe 500 meters away, so not close, and being like, wow, that's a big rock. And like, I would say SUV sized boulder. And sort of so standing there and being like, you know, what do you think? Talking about what we wanted to do, since there's, you know, evidence that there's bears pretty close by. So we got out some of our kitchen stuff, and, you know, another concern obviously is the dogs, making sure the dogs are, you know, leashed properly and they're not going to get away. And I mean, that's just basic anyway. If you're hiking with dogs and your dog's off leash, like, your dog's probably, if you run into anything, your dog's gonna die. So we hike with our dogs on leash. Not only is it in compliance with the law, but it also means that our dogs aren't gonna run up to a bear and die. So, well, you know, we're talking about this, and anyway, the boulder got up and started to move. And no, so as we're discussing you know, what we're gonna do with the dogs, and then we're like, well, we'll make a lot of noise and sort of stop every once in a while and sort of reevaluate. But bears don't want to see people. They don't really like noise, and so that's why people carry bear bells, right? And they say if you're out, as long as you're talking quite loudly, or, you know, you're making noise, most wildlife is going to avoid you. Wildlife don't necessarily want to have encounters with people. So we started being loud and then like banging some of our kitchen stuff. And then I noticed out of the corner of my eye that the boulder got up and started walking up the hill towards us. And never seen anything that big. I mean, I've seen animals that big, but like, I've never seen a bear that big ever. And because, you know, when you're out and, you know, you think something is a boulder the size of a car or the size of an SUV, I mean, there's not very many options of what it could be. So it was like kind of a gray, beigey, brown color. And but once it started moving, it was pretty apparent it was a grizzly. And my heart started going, and I mean, it wasn't charging. If it was charging, we would have died probably. But it definitely was, it seemed like it was curious. So we were like, well, we should probably, you know, keep moving and see, because where the tree line was and the trail kind of curved around, and we were maybe an hour and a half from the end of the trail. And so we decided that we would just keep moving and hope for the best, and kind of hope that we didn't encounter the bear. And so we were just like clapping and making a lot of noise. And once we got to the end of the trail where there was a parking lot, not only were there like, it was still hot bear scat and fresh bear prints at the parking lot. And we were just like, we couldn't believe it. Like, I just noticed it's snowing. So I don't know if it followed the sound or what, but that was the closest encounter I've had to a really large grizzly, and that's as close as I'd like to get. I don't need to be close to grizzlies, and like, yeah, sometimes I see them in my car and it's like physically closer, but and not that cars provide that much safety, because bears can break glass, and they slash tires with their claws and all that stuff. But I mean, you'd have to be in a situation, I don't know why a bear would necessarily attack a car unless you're doing something to provoke it. like if you have a baby bear in your vehicle that's theirs or something. But anyway, that's like my bear story time. I can't believe it's snowing. For reference, it's about 10, well, it might have dropped now, but it's about 10 degrees Celsius, so it's definitely not gonna stay, like this snow's not gonna stick, but this is spring in the mountains. Still snows, it just doesn't stay for as long. So this was my video on bears and the spring and what bear energy is for me in my life right now. I would love to hear your thoughts about working with bears, experiences with bears. Are you afraid of bears? Do you love bears? Are there bears that live near you, or do you share space with bears in your area? Comment below. I'd love to hear that, and I'd love to continue this conversation. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye. Hi, honey. Hello. Hello. Oh, that's the camera. Buka had to just come in for a little kiss there.